We're going to be Job chapter 2 today. We also have an outline in your bulletin. I encourage you to take some additional notes. The lyrics of that song actually fit well with what we're going to talk about today. It's our third message in Job. Just a little bit of review. Job chapter 1, we talked about what your reputation was in heaven. Find out that Satan shows up in heaven and God brags about Job. He said, "If you consider my man Job here, he's an awesome guy, fears God, turns away from evil." And Satan says, well, the only reason he does those things is because you build a hedge around him. If you take down that hedge and let me attack him, he's going to curse you. God said, okay, I'll let you do some things to him, to what he has, but nothing to him. We know that he withstood that. So we looked at Biggest Loser last Sunday. Job lost all his resources. He lost all 10 children in one day. Try to wrap your mind around that. Yet he still ended up kneeling down and worshiping God. So Satan shows back up in heaven. This chapter we're going to look at today. And we're going to see what happens in that situation as well. I always like a good sermon title, so we'll put one up here on the screen for you. Guy was driving across Texas at night looking for a Christian radio station. He finally found one. The pastor was preaching on Job. Here was his title: "I can't eat by day, I can't sleep by night, and a woman I love don't treat me right." Okay, his English wasn't great, but come on, he's from Texas, so yeah. Can't eat by day, I can't sleep by night, a woman I love don't treat me right. And so, yeah, we're going to see he couldn't eat by day, he couldn't sleep at night. And his wife said, why don't you just curse God and die? When he needed her support more than ever, he didn't get it there. And Job had no idea what was going on. So Job chapter 2, Satan's second accusation in your outline, Job 2, 1-6. On another day, the angels came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan also came with them to present himself before him. And the Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming through the earth and going back and forth in it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one on earth like him. He's blameless, upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil. And he still maintains his integrity, though you incited me against him to ruin him without any season." And Satan says, skin for skin. A man will give all he has for his own life, but stretch out your hand and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face. The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, he is in your hands, but you must spare his life." Second accusation. God gives Satan permission to attack Job. First thing, verses 7 and 8, he lost his health. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. And Job took a piece of broken pottery and he scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. Yeah, we're going to go into some detail here as to what this was like for Job. Chapter 2, verse 7. Afflicted with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Inflamed, ulcerous sores is the first thing. I think we'll put that on the screen. Inflamed, ulcerous sores. I was in Boy Scouts when I was a kid. We go Boy Scout camp in the summer. One summer, a friend of mine named Carl Staub's brother, I still remember this. He ended up with boils all over his body. They had him laying out on like a tabletop with big boils all over his body. Job had it from his feet to his head, painful sores on the soles of his feet. Verse 8 says this: he took a piece of broken pottery. He found a piece of broken pottery and began to scrape himself because he totally, completely itched. Painful sores. Took a piece of broken pottery and he scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. We'll look at this a little more closely, but he wasn't at home. He was sitting on the dump in the city where they dropped all their trash. In many cities, like when we go to Honduras and Tegucigalpa, the dump there, The poorest people go to the dump to try to find something to eat. Dogs go there to try to eat things. Here they brought the dung and burned it in this place. And that's where the man who was the greatest man in the East, with all that he owned, was now sitting with boils all over his body, scraping himself with a piece of potsherd in anguish and pain. Job chapter 2 verse 12 says this: when they saw him from a distance, his friends, they could hardly recognize him. He was disfigured from this. His friends couldn't even recognize him. Disfiguration was also there. Their response was they began to weep aloud. They tore the robes, sprinkled dust on their heads. Next week we're going to look at how to help someone who's grieving. They did some things right, but then we're going to find out they did some things wrong. Loss of disfiguration, loss of appetite. Job chapter 3, verse 24. He says, "For sign comes to me instead of food, and my groans pour out like water." Loss of appetite. Job chapter 3, verse 25. It says, "What I feared has come upon me. What I dreaded has happened to me. I have no peace, no quietness, no rest, only turmoil." Imagine trying to sleep at night with that. Yeah, you couldn't eat at day, you couldn't sleep at night. Fear, depression. Pus-filled blisters, chapter 7, verse 5 describes it. "My body is clothed with worms and scabs. My skin is broken and festering." So worms develop in those pus-filled blisters. Difficulty in breathing, chapter 9, verse 18. "He could not let me regain my breath, but would overwhelm me with misery." Difficulty in breathing. Chapter 16, verse 16. Darkening of the eyelid. "My face is red with weeping, deep shadows ring my eyes, yet my hands have been free of violence, and my prayer is pure." Darkening of the eyelids. Foul breath. Chapter 19, verse 17 says, "My breath is offensive to my wife." Loss of weight. Chapter 19, verse 20. "I am nothing but skin and bones." So he sat on the pile, he scraped himself, he lost his appetite, he's sitting in that mess, and this went on for months for him. Excruciating, continual pain. Job chapter 30, verse 27. Constant pain. "The churning inside me never stops. Days of suffering confront me." Verse 30. "My skin grows black and peels. My body burns with fever." Yeah, that was Job's situation. Chapter 1, greatest man in the East. All the sheep, all the resources, 10 children, lost all those things. And now Satan attacked him physically, lasted for months. He ended up in a place where they burned the garbage. Warren Wiersbe describes it this way: "The city garbage was deposited and burned. There the city's rejects lived, begging alms from whoever passed by. At the ash heap, dogs fought over something to eat. The city's dung was brought and burned." The greatest man in the East was now sitting in that place without the support of his wife. His friends saw how great his suffering was. Here's the truth: more spiritual growth happens through pain than it does through prosperity. Nobody wants it, but the truth is more people grow when they face those kind of trials and difficulties in their lives than any other way. Church doesn't have to provide a program for it. Pain can humble the proud and soften the stubborn. You don't have to turn to it, but in the New Testament, we meet someone else who went through terrible physical pain. In 2 Corinthians letter, false teachers come to Corinth. They lied about Paul, said he wasn't a legitimate apostle. They were trying to draw the people away from the truth. So Paul has to brag a little bit about what he went through as a missionary in order to reach them with the gospel. He says in chapter 11, "I've worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, and been exposed to death again and again. 5 times," he said, "I received from the Jews 40 lashes minus 1. Jesus had 39 stripes and couldn't have the strength to carry the cross. Paul had 195 stripes. His body was covered with scars. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once he was stoned and left for dead. Can you imagine? They picked up huge stones and threw them at a person until they were dead. They thought he was dead. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I've been constantly on the move, in danger from rivers, bandits, my own countrymen in the country. I've labored and toiled. I've gone without sleep. I've known hunger and thirst. I've often gone without food. I've been cold and naked. Yeah. And then he says in chapter 12, God took him up to heaven and gave him certain revelations that no one else has ever seen before. And then he says, to keep me from becoming conceited because of these surpassingly great revelations, it was given to me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. God allowed Satan to torment Paul physically. He said, I asked the Lord 3 times to take it away. You know what the Lord said? He said, no. He said, no. He said, my power is made perfect when? In weakness. When you're going through pain, what happens? When you go through that kind of pain, you turn to the Lord more than you ever would when life was going without pain. Therefore, he said, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is for why, Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecution, difficulties. For when I am weak, I am strong. More happens through weakness, through pain. Dave DeVecchi, I don't know if you remember Dave DeVecchi, he pitched with remarkable success for the San Diego Padres, San Francisco Giants a number of years ago. His pitching arm developed an unusual soreness. Medical tests identified the problem. He had cancer. Surgery and months of rehabilitation followed. Then he pitched in the minor leagues for quite a while. He was able to come back to the major leagues. In Montreal, as he was delivering a pitch, his arm snapped. Cancer had not gone away. To save his life, they had to remove his arm and much of his shoulder. Committed Christian, David didn't wallow in self-pity. He said, there's no struggle about feeling sorry for myself. The question is not, why me, God, but God, what do you give me this opportunity for? He said, I believe God's given me this opportunity to share the gospel with more people than I ever would have had a chance to share the gospel with before. Truth is, more growth happens through pain than any other way. Job lost something else. The woman he loved didn't treat him right. Job lost the support of his wife. Verse 9 says this, Job chapter 2. His wife said to him, are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die. Wives, come on. You should never challenge your husband to curse God and die, no matter what you're going through. I mean, I get it. She lost 10 children too. She lost all her wealth. She lost all those things. What's it say in Proverbs? Life and death are in the power of the tongue. So she says to her husband, just curse God and die. See, oftentimes Satan tries to work with people closest to us. And in a marriage, sometimes he can try to use your spouse. What did God do? What did Satan do in Genesis chapter 3? He spoke to Eve. God didn't say you couldn't eat this fruit. Go for it. 1995, Christopher Reeve, the Superman actor, I still remember this, fell from a horse in a riding accident that severed his spinal cord, paralyzed him from the shoulders down. The days that followed, both he and his mother considered pulling the plug on his life support system. In his new memoir, Still Me, which recounts how he battled back from the accident, Reeve said he first shared his thoughts with his wife, Dana. He said, I mouthed to her, my first lucid words to her were this, maybe we should just let me die. But his wife, unlike Job's wife, said this. Through tears, she persuaded him to fight back, saying, I want you to know I will be with you for the long haul. No matter what, you are still you, and I love you. His wife was there for the support. Job lost his health, he lost the support of his wife, but Job didn't lose one thing. He didn't lose his perspective. He didn't lose his perspective. Look at verse 10. He replied, "You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. Now, let's be honest. Most Christians in North America think of God as the great gift giver. Okay, God, bless my life with this and this and this. Our prayers always have blessing and goodness. What Job didn't lose his perspective was this: life includes blessings and troubles. If you thought when you accepted Jesus Christ, your personal Savior, you're going to have a pain-free life, and that's not going to happen. There's actually what is called the prosperity gospel taught by a number of people in our country. Now they're spreading to other countries. The whole idea is accept Jesus, you'll be healthy, wealthy, and wise the rest of your life. No problems, no difficulties, no hardships. Not true. We're never promised painless life. Job realized life includes blessings and troubles. Jesus said to the disciples, "In this world you will have trouble." What did Peter say when we preached through the book of Peter? He says to his readers, don't be surprised at the trials you're going through. That's part of life. God uses the trials to grow you more in your walk with Christ. Larry Crabb, a Christian author, a number of years ago, said this: as a culture, present-day Christianity has redefined spiritual maturity. Reformers knew we were saved to glorify God. We moderns live to be blessed. The mature among us are now thought to be the successful, the happy, the effective people. We're more attracted to sermons, books, and conferences that reveal the secrets to fulfillment than the spiritual direction that lead us through difficulties into the presence of God. We'll put it on the screen here, but I had to chuckle. The Bridger Wilderness comments. People who hiked in Wyoming up the mountain. They got to fill out registration forms and sheets, and this is some of the comments they made. Trails need to be wider so people can walk holding hands. Trails need to be reconstructed. Please avoid building trails that go uphill. Okay, next. Too many bugs, leeches, spiders, spider webs. Please spray the wilderness to rid the area of these pests. Oh, please pave the trails so they can be plowed and snowed during the wintertime. Chairlifts need to be in some places so we can get to the wonderful views without having to hike to them. Yeah. And I had a lot of Christians, that's what they want from their faith. Want a life of ease. Job didn't have a life of ease. Job had a life of pain. Can you still imagine sitting where he sat with the pain he was in, scraping himself, sitting there for month after month, day after day, lost the support of his wife, lost his children, lost all those things, but he didn't lose his perspective. Life includes blessings and cursings. So here's the application. Acceptance is the key to growing through trials. You're going to get trials in your life. How do we grow and mature through them? Accepting them. He says to his wife, you were great when you got good from God, but now you got some difficulties, you're not so good. He said we should be willing to accept both. God may not cause everything, but God may allow it. God didn't cause this, but he allowed Satan to affect Job's physical health. Job said, shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Job said later on, he knows the way I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold. Job would go through this experience much more. James chapter 1, when we preach through the book of James, we emphasize this: consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kinds. Why? Because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance, and perseverance leads to what? Maturity. Maturity. There's no shortcut to maturity. Maturity is going to take pain along the way. Put up another. Perseverance must finish its work so you may be mature, complete, not lacking in anything. Want to simplify it? We'll put it up this way. Acceptance leads to endurance. Endurance leads to maturity. Some of you may be in pain now. Some of you may be in pain in the next week or month. When you go to pain, God's still in control. He still loves you. He can use that pain to grow your faith. The opposite, if I resist God's difficulties, I turn bitter and get disillusioned. Charles Swindoll said this: I've tried and cannot find either in scripture or history a strong-willed individual whom God used greatly until he allowed him to suffer deeply. Would Job have chosen this? No. Would I have chosen this? No. Would you have chosen this? No. But God allowed this in Job's life, and Job, we will find in the end, grows deeply through this. He will come forth as gold. So what troubles are you facing? Acceptance is the key to growing through trials. In October 1991, you've seen the news, some of the fires in California. In October 1991, a firestorm destroyed 2,500 homes in the vicinity of Oakland, California. When the people returned, they went through the remains. They were all reduced to nothing. The Sunday after the disaster, a local minister came to church and carried with him an unbroken vase, which was the only thing recovered from his home. When he held the vase up on Sunday morning, he said to the people, "Do you know why this vase made it through the fire?" He says, because it had already been through the fire one time before. Job learned that going through the fire prepared him for other pain in the future. 1993, Paul Azinger was almost at the top. Some of you are golfers here. At the age of 33, he won his first major title, the PGA Championship in Inverness, by defeating Greg Norman in a two-hole playoff. He finished second on the PGA Tour list, earning more than $1.4 million. He had won 2 other tournaments, bringing his career total to 11. His 10 top 3 finishes were the most on the tour since Tom Watson in 1980. He kept his 7-year tournament victory streak alive, giving him the longest such tour run on the tour. In addition, he played a key role in the United States' victory at the Ryder Cup. Finally, he had climbed his way to the peak of success until December, the final month of the year. Doctors discovered he had lymphoma, a form of cancer, in his right shoulder blade. He said, "I had a jolt through my system." You don't expect anyone to tell you when you're 33 years old that you got cancer. His thoughts turned immediately to his wife and daughter. When something like this happens, you can scream, "Why me? Why me, God?" You can run away, or you can do an about face, turn to God, and cling to Him for your hope. Azinger said this. He described it as one of the greatest experiences of his life. It was a painful experience. Job learned too. Acceptance is key to growing through difficulties and trials. Let's pray. Father, you know the